Edition of American Warrior Radio, the place to be for news, notes, interviews, and current events for all issues military and veteran related. If you or someone you know has ever worn the uniform of the U.S. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, or National Guard or Reserves, you've come to the right place. American Warrior Radio, right here on the Talk to Me station, AM 1300 WMEL, sponsored as always by AVET Project. This program is all about supporting our troops and their families, both past and present. So please get comfortable. Grab a cup of coffee, maybe a pencil or paper to jot down a note or two, because we're always efforting to bring you important information. With that said, let's roll down the runway and get this show off the ground. My name is Garen Cohn. I'm an Air Force veteran and a retired legal advocate for veterans, as well as founder of AVET Project, but I never fly through the airwaves alone.
Good morning, I'm Glenn McGuffey, manager of your Brevard County Veteran Services team. It's great to be here. We've got another exciting show for you today. We're going to try and demystify some of the mystification about VA healthcare enrollment, and we're also going to talk to you. You heard it here first about the new VA assisted living facility. We're going to give you more details about that, and an update on the hospital, and much, much more. So
this is a full show. We've got a lot of information to share with you folks today. So, like I said, get ready. Glenn, you mentioned healthcare enrollment. This is super important, especially nowadays when everybody is struggling economically. Some have jobs, some are underemployed. A lot of our returning service members are coming back to find that their job is no longer there.
Yeah, very unfortunate, and we probably need to start this all off again reminding people who's a veteran, because it's veterans' healthcare system. A veteran is anybody who had, other than a dishonorable discharge basically, who served their country, you know, in
the military,
stead.
in uniform.
Yeah, and up until 1980 or 1981, depending on the enlisted or officer. And before that, you needed at least 90 days of active duty, and you needed to have a good tight discharge, well, not a real bad one, not a dishonorable, and we won't get into all the details on that. But if you had an honorable conditions discharge, you're in good shape with VA benefits, including healthcare enrollment.
And Glenn, isn't it true that if somebody had a general, an administrative discharge, a general, they may still qualify for VA benefits and VA healthcare enrollment?
Yeah, even if it's general under other than honorable conditions, you may still qualify. The VA will look at those on a case-by-case basis and make a determination based upon your whole entire time in the service, not a one time maybe that you got into trouble. So don't ever self-disqualify yourself. Probably the biggest thing out there, and I still hear it all the time from veterans, is they think you got to be a military retiree to be a veteran. That's not true. All military retirees are veterans, yes, but you don't have to be a military retiree to be a veteran. You just have to have served your country X amount of time and without a dishonorable discharge, and that X amount of time up until 1980 is 90 days or more of active duty. Now we're going to talk real quick about reserves and National Guard.
I think that's important, because 40% of our deployed forces are comprised of the Guard and Reserves.
That's right. If all your service consisted of Guard or Reserve time except for active duty for training, you're not eligible for VA benefits. However, it's the if and or but world of VA benefits. However, for our current Guard and Reserve members who have been deployed to Iraq, Afghanistan, and maybe even other places, as long as their 214 says they completed the tour of duty for which they were called to active duty for, that's good enough. That makes you a veteran. That makes you eligible for VA health care. And in fact, if you're a combat veteran, you've got 5 years of eligibility from when you come back to the world.
And it's an important distinction between being a Guard, a National Guardsman, or reservist. If you've been federalized, called up to active duty, like you said, Glenn, you're going to have a legitimate DD-214.
That's right. They're going to issue a DD-214. You may get a DD-214 with active duty for training, but it says very clearly on there for active duty for training. And if that's the only active duty times you've got in your points accumulation in service in the Guard or Reserve, that's not good enough by itself.
Right. So it's important to take your DD-214. This is the first step in getting qualified into the VA healthcare system. Take your DD-214 to a VA facility, clinic, medical center, where have you, and present them with that. They'll have you fill out, what is it, a 1010-EZ?
1010-EZ, and you need, of course, your copy of your discharge paper, or papers, as the case may be, but for sure the most current one. And they will take care of that. They throw it in the computer, and it goes up to Atlanta, and the computer spins the numbers around and says if you're eligible or not. And the whole enrollment eligibility thing, in a nutshell, is based upon a combination of whether or not you have service-connected disabilities, and if not, or if they're only at 0% and you're getting no money, then what is your income and what is the value of your net worth. If you have service-connected disability 10% or above, you're not subjected to that income and asset means test.
So if a soldier, sailor, airman, or Marine was in the Guard of Reserves, got called up, got federalized, and did some active duty, and they have their DD-214, but they filed a claim with the VA and established service connection, maybe for a broken finger that is since healed, and the VA comes back and says you're 0%. That's service connection for these purposes, but it doesn't automatically qualify them for VA healthcare enrollment.
No, with just a 0%, you're going to be subjected to that income and asset means test that the VA has, and we'll start with that. I mean,
good place.
There's 8 enrollment priority groups, the VA calls them, and we'll start at the bottom and work our way to the top, because the top's a lot easier than the bottom is.
So we've got 8 different categories. What's number 8? How does that?
Okay, enrollment priority 8, and there's 4 subcategories in it, but only 2 will possibly qualify, I should say, for being eligible to enroll in the VA healthcare system. And that's sub-priority, well, you don't care about that, but that's a group where the non-compensable, and that's what Garen was talking about, you got a 0% service-connected disability. You're not getting any money from the VA, but you got a service-connected disability. And you have income below the VA threshold. And there's a VA threshold and a HUD threshold, and the VA's lower than HUD is. And
so it's more favorable to the vet.
Yeah, in the next example, we'll use the HUD one because that's the other part that could be eligible. If the VA's income thresholds for 2012, not HUD's, the VA's, says that and we're going to use just a family, a married veteran and his spouse, and that's it, no children. Just use that as a representative example.
Kind of a baseline.
Yeah. You've got to have less than $36,500 in general total income for the year.
That's your gross income.
That's your gross income for anything comes out, and it's both of you. If you both have income, you got to count both of you's income. Then, if you pass that test, you're not done yet. You have to pass the net worth test, which is $80,000. And again, the net worth of both individuals in the family is counted. So that's stocks, bonds, CDs, any kind of savings you might have. Now, what is exempted from this is your home and a car and the contents of your home. Now, if you have another piece of real property that's worth $60,000 or $70,000, that would count, except in some, then we get into the real if and or buts. But I've helped people before who couldn't sell their property and get that not counted against them. So, but that's what we're there for. We're just giving you a high side pass here today, help you understand this system.
So again, 36 grand or less is going to get you through the door.
For a married veteran with a 0% service-connected disability. If you don't have any service-connected disabilities, you're not getting in the door. That's the bottom line. If you have more than 36.5 for income.
Okay, so if somebody comes in and says they're making 40 grand a year, they have no VA rating decision saying they're service connected for anything, they're basically out of luck.
Well, that's an excellent question, because I don't want anybody listening to this show today not to go to the VA with their DD 214 and apply for enrollment for VA health care. There are tons of exceptions to all these rules we're giving you today. For instance, if you were exposed to Agent Orange as a Vietnam-era veteran, if you were exposed to ionizing radiation during World War II or on other occasions, Southwest Asia veterans, and other catastrophically disabled veterans and other categories. So don't self-deny yourself. Our intention is never to give you enough information where you sit there and self-deny yourself and don't take any action. Go over and see if you're really eligible, because these things can change. And it's an easy process. And it's an easy process. Take your 214, you fill out a couple page form, you hand it to them, and see what the computer in Atlanta tells you. And yeah, we're working for a computer, I guess. But.
And if you're listening to this and you decide, well, I listened to Glenn and Garen and I don't think I'm going to qualify, so I'm not going to do it, and you just don't bother with it, you could be messing yourself up. Go ahead and do it, because as you mentioned, there's so many different, there's minutia within all this, and they may get qualified somewhere along the line.
That's right, and then...
And guess what? If they get a denial, this is a decision that is appealable.
It's a decision that's appealable, and even more relevant in this bad economic downturn that we're in, they use last year's income when they're asking for income on the enrollment
Listen
form.
up now.
And so last year I made $45,000, and I go in and enroll, and they come back and say, sorry, you made too much money. Okay, but I got laid off from my job 6 months ago,
change,
and I'm not making any money now. Then you can go in and apply for a hardship waiver, and that is possible to get approved based on your current income versus last year's that they normally use. So there's another instance of if and or but rules that works in your favor, particularly if you're down on your luck right now in this hard economic time.
So like Glenn said, don't disqualify yourself. Go through the process. Let the VA issue a decision, and then if you have an issue with that decision, a denial, you can speak to Glenn or some other credentialed service officer that can help you maneuver through this maze.
And that's right, Dan. Don't start with us, because what we're going to do is send you straight down the road about a half a mile to the VA clinic and say, try and enroll. Now, the other one that can enroll...
Still Category 8?
Subcategory 8, that's higher than the VA national income threshold and higher than HUD. There's a HUD national income threshold, and that threshold is higher than the VA. And I don't have those figures here, and that's not relevant to our discussion at the moment. So these people, again, are people with 0% service-connected disability who have income higher than both the VA and the HUD threshold. And again, the way you find that out is to apply and see if that's the category you're in. And again, if you've lost your job or your spouse has lost your job and that puts you below the thresholds, then there's a hardship waiver available for you. And at that time, you can come see us if it all gets too confusing, and we'll help you sort it out. But that's the two priority group 8s. There's 2 more priority groups there, N8, which are non-service connected veterans who have not 0% service connected disability, and those people are not being taken even if they're below the income threshold right now. And that's a decision made a few years ago by the then Secretary of the VA, and it has not been changed
So it's still on the books.
And I can tell you why that was made, because I remember not being too happy about it, but then when I thought about it, I didn't know what else the VA was going to do, because the clinic down here had just opened up, And if you were 100% service-connected disabled veteran, it took you a year to get an initial appointment because everybody and his brother was using the VA as a pharmacy. And they were perfectly happy to keep using their downtown doctors and take, but the only way they could get VA scripts was come up, see a VA doctor, and get them to write the script. So they, in short, they were overloaded beyond the max, and the people who most needed the VA healthcare system weren't getting it, and that was lower income veterans and veterans with serious service-connected disabilities, or any service-connected disabilities for that matter. So
the bottom line there is, if you had a material change in your circumstances, let's say you went through a divorce, you lost your job, any of these big life-changing events could change the entire outlook regarding VA eligibility for health care.
Oh, absolutely, because obviously if you had a divorce from your spouse, then
Less
that
income.
income's not going to count anymore.
You bet. So folks, just go to the VA and apply. DD-214, fill out a simple form. They'll issue a decision. We're going to cover the rest of the categories here, but when you have that decision in hand, if you have a question or you disagree with it, then there's steps you can take to have it addressed.
Oh, absolutely. Just like a denial on a service-connected disability, you can appeal.
Okay, so what's the next category up from 8? Obviously it's 7, but
Hey, good counting.
I'm working it.
Okay, 7.
We got a couple minutes before the break.
Yeah, 7 is if veterans who will agree to pay specified co-payments, and we'll get into that in a couple of minutes, who have income and threshold below the HUD threshold, but above that VA threshold, again, which was for a married couple, 36.5, give or take. And they have to have a 0% service non-compensable,
Easy for you
which
to
is
say.
0% service-connected disability. Again, income above VA, below HUD, and they agree to pay co-pays for certain types of care that they get. And then you've got those that are 0% service-connected. Well, I mean, that's basically priority group 7. We're going to try and get in more of the specifics on 7 than that, because you'll get really confused, because it's this category is that and this one is if not that then this and so forth. So
right, and we've got a bunch more to cover here, but the bottom line before we go to break, I just want you to all understand, take your DD-214 to the closest VA clinic or hospital, ask them you'd like to enroll for VA healthcare. They'll provide you a form. You can fill it out on the spot. They probably don't always make the decision on the spot, but they do get you a decision eventually. And if you disagree with that, then there are steps you can take. Do not disqualify yourself beforehand based on anything you hear here or somewhere else, because the rumor mill is running wild out there.
Yeah, and we told you who you are as a veteran for VA benefits, so get with it.
Folks, stick with us here on American Warrior Radio. We will be back in a moment with more.